This week's topic is sexual assault. Sexual assaults come in two basic categories. Instrumental sexual aggression, whereas the offender uses just enough force and coercion to gain the compliance of the victim, whereas expressive sexual aggression, the primary aim is to cause harm to the person physically and sexually. There are currently well over 200,000 sex offenders in the custody of various corrections agencies in the United States. The term sex offender is a very broad term and can range from exhibitionism to sadistic rapes. All states require some sex offenders to register with law enforcement, yet these laws do vary by state. Sexual predator laws allow for the civil commitment of sex offenders to facilities such as state hospitals after they are done serving their jail and prison sentences. In defining rape, it should be noted that many states do not use the word rape in criminal code. They use terms such as sexual assault or criminal sexual conduct. The Department of Justice defines rape as the unlawful sexual intercourse with a female by force or without the legal consent. Forcible rape is when intercourse occurs against a female forcibly and against her will. Statutory rape is without force, but is illegal due to the female not being able to give consent due to her age. Rape by fraud is having sexual relationships that is consenting, but under a fraudulent pretense. This happens when doctors and therapists and such use their power to have sexual relations. Marital rape occurs in up to 15% of marriages, but is wildly underreported. Men and boys are also victims of rape, but due to the terminology used, oftentimes these will go underreported or reported in different categories. But it is guesstimated that about 9% of all rapes are against males. So some statistics on sexual assault and rape. The United States has the highest incident of rape in the world, and this is for countries that keep such data and report those findings. Sexual assault is likely extremely underreported and underestimated. In 2009, there were over 71,000 reported rapes that were reported to law enforcement. Approximately 2/3 of rapes go unreported, and estimates are likely higher because it's hard to keep such statistics. About a quarter of all college women reported being the victim of rape or attempted rape, and 10% of college males admitted to raping or attempting to rape a female while on a date. The psychological impact of rape on victims is enormous. Invisible wounds can fester long after physical wounds go away. Medical evaluations, police interviewing, having to testify in court all complicate the picture. Reactions from family members, friends, and especially intimate partners can be significantly complicated and disruptive. Individuals who are victims oftentimes have significant functional impairments. They have difficulty in school, work, their interpersonal relationships, have difficulty in social and leisure activities, and sometimes activities of daily living. Mental illness such as anxiety and depression are very common, especially post-traumatic stress disorder. The National Women's Study in 1998 found that 29% of forcible rapes occurred in females under the age of 11. 32% occurred on females between the ages of 11 and 17, 22% between the ages of 18 and 24, 7% between the ages of 25 and 29, and 6% were older than 29. 24% of the rapists were strangers, meaning 76% were known to the victim. 22% were husbands and ex-husbands, 20% were boyfriends and ex-boyfriends, 10% were relatives, and 15% were others who were known to the victim, such as neighbors. Although there is no exact profile of a sex offender, the following are some stats and correlates of sex offenders. They tend to be young and male. They oftentimes are under the influence of alcohol when they commit the act. Oftentimes they'll have a criminal record. Juvenile sex offenders, especially who are engaged in habitual sexual offending, tend to have various other criminal behaviors. About half are unemployed. 2/3 are never married. With the exception of child molesters, the majority tend to be married. And oftentimes sex offenders start out with minor deviant sexual acts, such as being a peeping Tom or exhibitionism, and they slowly grow more severe and can end up in rape. So why do people engage in sexual offending behaviors? Well, there's various reasons, including an irresistible impulse, where the normal restraints and self-control of self-regulation a person has is overwhelmed by an excessive sex drive. Mental disease such as pedophilia, paraphilias, disorders such as those cause a person to have sexual deviations that are very ingrained in their mentality. Drugs and alcohol cause a person to lose control over their impulses and more likely to offend. And some offenders blame the victims. They believe the victim was being seductive and is at fault. Some people who look at life through the just cause mentality tend to be more likely to harm somebody else for those types of reasons. Individuals who admit to their sex offending oftentimes will have stories that are much like the victims regarding the events. Those people tend to have more remorse and take more responsibility for the offending, where the people that are deniers, they tend to blame the victim and justify the rape with various rationalizations, such as in the case of irresistible impulse. They really believe that they just didn't have the ability to control their behaviors and take different rationalizations and justifications to justify their behavior. In classifying rape patterns, we find four different types of rapists. Displaced aggression rapists are primarily violent and aggressive in their actions. They display little, if any, sexual feeling during the event. Compensatory rapists rape in response to intense sexual arousal. This is oftentimes derived from a low self-esteem, the need to feel some power. Sadistic rapists have both sexual and aggressive features that coexist at near equal levels. And exploitive rapists engage in spontaneous rape when the opportunity presents itself. An example of that is date rapes.